Hi, fourth graders. For the last couple weeks, we've been talking about fractions that have a denominator of a 10 and a 100. And I told you at the very beginning that the reason for that is because it's going to help us connect fractions to decimals, because fractions and decimals are really just the same thing. They're part of a whole. They just look different. They're kind of notated in a different way, but you can have fractions equivalent to decimals, especially if they have a denominator of 10 or 100. So that's what we're going to work on today, is seeing the connection between certain fractions and their decimal partners. So let's jump in. Before we talk about fractions, I want to take us back and review place value. So if you go all the way back to Unit 1 at the beginning of the year, we had a place value chart. And our place value chart used to start with the ones. And I know what you're thinking. No, Mrs. Shock, the ones place was all the way over on the right side. It looked like that before, but there was just a decimal place there that you didn't know. It was hidden. We weren't really talking about it yet. So we had the ones place, and then next to the ones place we had the tens, and next to the tens we had the hundreds. And then we had a comma. Let me switch colors here. We had a comma here. Boop, there's a comma. And then, next to the hundreds, we had the thousands. Next to the thousands, we had the 10,000s. Next to the 10,000s, we had the 100,000s. I'm going to try and fit it in. Ooh, it almost fit. Okay, and then we had another comma. Bloop, bloop. And next to that, we had the millions. And it keeps going. We go to the 10 millions and then the 100 millions, and then we get to the billions and the 10 billions and the 100 billions. It keeps going. But we're going to stop there for now. Now, on the other side of that place value chart, there's more places. It keeps going on forever, kind of in both directions. But this year, we only really worry about 2 places. Okay? So on the other side, we have the tenths. And you're probably thinking, we've been talking about tenths, but we haven't been talking about decimals. We've been talking about fractions that have a 10 at the bottom. So I guess you can assume then after the tenths will be the hundredths. And those were fractions that had 100 at the bottom. So I want you to copy this place value chart down. It's important that you have it. And it's important that you know that the first place to the right of the decimal is the tenths, and then the next place to the right of that is the hundredths. So I want you to pause right now and I want you to copy this. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about fractions and how they can be written as decimals. So pause now. Okay, so we talked about how this is the tenths. So I'm going to call this the tenths. And this is the hundredths. So the fraction I have here is 3/10. That means I'm going to put the 3 in the tenths place. So I would write this decimal either as 0 and 3/10, or I could also write it as 0 and 3/100. 30/100, excuse me, because we know that 3/10 is the same thing as 30/100. They're the same. So I can write it with or without that 0. I could write it as 0.3 or 0.30. Either way, it's the same because we know they're equivalent. Now if I move down, this says 3/100. So I'm going to put the 3 where? Well, I'm going to put it in the hundredths place. Now I've got to put the zeros in here now. The zeros that are to the left are always important. So if you have empty spaces between your decimal and your hundredths place, you have to put what's called a place 0. It's important. It holds the spot in saying that you have 0/10 and 3/100. So this decimal would be read as 3/100 because it's the exact same thing as the fraction, 3/100. Okay, well, so this next one, I've got 33/100. Now, I can't put 2 digits in one place. I never could, and I still can't. But I can write 33 hundredths this way, because 33 is basically 30, or 3 tens, and then 3 ones. So I can put a 3 in the tenths place and a 3 in the hundredths place to make 33. So that would be 33 hundredths. I'm going to get rid of these weird little 3's because I don't want those to confuse you. Hope you're writing this down. I can go the other way too. If I read this, it says 47, and the last place is the denominator. So this says 47. The 7 is in the hundredths, so this is 47 hundredths. So I say what I see. 2 is my numerator. Where is the 2? It's in the tenths, so it's 2 tenths. Say what I see. 13. Denominator is the last place value. It's in the hundredths place, so it's 13 hundredths. Seems pretty straightforward. So let me tell you my strategy that I use here. I write the digits as the numerator, and then the last place I have is the denominator. So this is 47, so I write 47 as my numerator. The 7 is in the hundredths place, so my denominator is hundredths. Let's look at another one. I can also have, remember we know we can have fractions greater than 1, well that means we can have decimals greater than 1 too. And this is super simple. This says 1 and 4 tenths. 1 and 4 tenths. Because I have one whole, and then 4 in the tenths place. Here, I have 2 wholes and 61 hundredths. It's a weird little spot that made. Oh, I did it again. 61 hundredths. Okay. 3 and, this is a tricky one, 9 hundredths. That means the 9 has to go in the hundredths place. That means I have to backfill this with a 0. 3 and 9 hundredths. Can't just leave a blank. I have to put a 0 in it. And I can go the other way. I can look at this. Okay, this is the whole number, 4. This is the numerator, 36. It's in the hundredths place, so hundredths. Whole number, 2. Numerator, 30. Hundredths place. Whole number, 5. Numerator, 9. And it's in the hundredths place. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to connect up and make some matches. So I'm going to read this. 2 and 6 tenths. So I've got 2 things that I think could be right. I think it could be this one or this one. In which case is the 6 in the tenths? Because my denominator is tenths. Well, if I go all the way back to my place value chart, the tenths is the one that's right after the decimal. Oops, too far. So that would be this one. So I'm going to connect that up. Boop. So that means this would be 2 and 6 hundredths. So I'm going to find that one. Here you go, 2 and 6 hundredths. Okay, let's look at the next one. 4 and 16 hundredths. So this is 4, but that's not 16. This is 4, but that's not 16. 4 and 16 hundredths, that makes sense. Okay, 4 and 3 tenths. Oh, but I also have 4 and 3 hundredths. Okay, well, this is the tenths place. This one's the hundredths place. So this one must be 4 and 3 hundredths. That means This one's 4 3/10. But wait a second. That says 30 hundredths. Don't forget, 3/10 is equal to 30 hundredths. So it's really the same thing. All right, what do I have left? I've got 2 3/100ths. Well, this is the tenths. This one's the hundredths. So that's right. Boom. Okay, so you're going to go and you're going to do the first part of your slideshow. And your code word is decimal. And I'm going to see if it will let me write it here. Decimal. That's the code word you're going to need. And then you're going to come on back here and we're going to talk about comparing those fractions and decimals. So off you go, part 1, and then I'll see you in a few minutes. Well, see you. I can't see you.